Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. So today children, we are going to read a very lively and a humorous story. Okay, and the name of the story is Pret in the House. And who's the writer, who's the author? Yes, Ruskin Bond. So let's begin. So as the title of the story is Pret in the House. Who's a Pret? Pret is a ghost, right? So a ghost is there in the house. So this is the story all about. It's a lively, a very funny and interesting story. The main character here is the narrator, the Pret, and then the narrator's grandfather, grandmother, uncle, and aunt. So these are the characters whom we'll come across in this story, right? So before we start with the story, let me tell you something about the author, Ruskin Bond. So the author, Ruskin Bond, was born on 19th May 1934 at Kasoli. It's a small town, a small hill town rather, in Himachal Pradesh. He is an Anglo-Indian writer, that is, he is an Indian author of British origin, right? His parents are non-Indians. So he got his schooling from Shimla, and at present he is living in Mussoorie. I hope all of you know where Mussoorie is. So he is living in Mussoorie and he had been living over there since 1963. He is best known for his writings for children. That is, he had written number of stories for children. Out of his famous stories, some are The Room on the Roof, The Blue Umbrella, and The Flight of Pigeons. So today we'll be reading again one of his famous and very interesting story. Okay. Now, as far as his style is concerned, he writes in a very simple, lucid and a very engaging style. That is, he makes the readers spellbound. And his writing, his style of writing, his presentation of the language is so simple that one can relate with it, right? I mean, it seems the readers enjoy each and every line, each and every expression, each and every word of his writings. And children, this is what we'll find in this story as well. We'll be enjoying each and every line in the story. So he has written stories about nature, very ordinary and common people, and ordinary life. So this story, we'll find that this story is also having a same setup, a same backdrop, ordinary people, right? So let's start. Before I start with the reading and explanation of the story, let me tell you the story. Let me give you the gist of the story so that you understand it better. You get a clear understanding of the story. So in this story, we'll find the narrator lives with his grandparents, and they live in a big house, and there's a huge big peepal tree right at the compound, okay, compound wall. And there in that peepal tree lives a ghost, right? Now once it happens that the PWD workers, that is, what is PWD? PWD is Public Works Department. So, the people from this PWD department came and they cut off the tree. The huge big peepal tree was cut. And therefore, this ghost, this Pret, became homeless. Now he had no home, right? So he took shelter in the narrator's house, and then onwards strange things started happening, and he deliberately did those mischiefs to trouble them. Sometime troubling his grandfather, sometime troubling his grandmother, sometime troubling his uncle, aunt. So all of them were troubled by this Pret, this ghost. So finally the family decides to shift to new house, right? So it was decided, and I mean the decision was taken, and they packed their all their belongings, and they started off for the new house. So the author, the narrator with his grandparents and everybody, they were sitting in the car. The grandfather was driving the car, so once he started the car, he could hear some sound coming from the roof of the car, as if somebody is talking, right? So they got down. Initially they thought that it might be the parrot, right? So they thought it's the parrot, but once they got down from the car and checked, but then there was nobody, and the parrot in the cage, that was also not there on the roof of the car. Okay, so again they thought maybe somebody might be talking. So again they got into the car and they started off. So while they were on their way, they again heard this chuckling sound coming from the roof of the car, right? So who was it? Yes, it was the Pret, and even the Pret was so excited that he was shifting to a new house. And this is where the story ends. So it's a wonderful story. We'll enjoy reading it. Okay? So let's start now. It was grandmother who decided that we must move to another house. It was all because of a Pret, a mischievous ghost who had been making life intolerable for everyone. So who decided that they should shift to a new house? Yes, it was the narrator's grandmother who decided that now it's enough. They cannot live in that house along with a mischievous ghost. They cannot live in the house with a Pret. So they must shift to a new house. Now why? Because the Pret had made their life miserable, intolerable. They cannot tolerate the Pret, the ghost, anymore. So they must they must shift to a new house. In India, Prets usually live in peepal trees, and that's where our Pret first lived. He lived in the branches of an old peepal tree, which had grown through the compound wall. It had spread into the garden on our side and over the road on the other side. So in India, it's believed that Prets or ghosts or spirits, they live in peepal trees. Huge big trees like peepal tree, banyan tree, neem tree. It's believed, right? It's an old belief, right? And that's where our Pret first lived. So the narrator writes that this was the place where the Pret lived earlier, right? So where did he live? On the peepal tree. He lived in the branches of an old peepal tree which had grown through the compound wall. So right near the boundary wall, right at the boundary wall, this huge big peepal tree had grown. Okay, and it had spread into the garden. It spread its branches into the garden, and on the garden of the narrator and over the road on the other side. So maybe it was just next to the compound wall, the boundary wall of the poet's house. The writer's house, and half of it was inside the garden and half of it was on the roadside. And this Pret lived in that peepal tree. For many years, the Pret had lived there quite happily without bothering anyone in the house. I suppose the traffic on the road had kept him fully occupied. Sometimes when a Tonga was passing, he would frighten the pony, and as a result, the little pony cart would go speeding off in the wrong direction. Occasionally, he would get into the engine of a car or bus, which would have a breakdown soon afterwards. So, the Pret, the ghost, has been presented, has been picturized, has been portrayed rather, as a very mischievous one, but harmless, not creating major harm, because mostly we've read about the ghosts and spirits bringing harm, doing harm to humans. But this ghost, this Pret, is very lively, very mischievous and harmless, just little troubling, troublesome, troubling the people a little, but not creating any major harm, right? Not dangerous at all. So, for many years, the Pret had lived in there quite happily without bothering anyone in the house. So, it had been living in that peepal tree since a long time, since many years, but it had not bothered, it had not troubled anyone, neither had it harmed anyone. I suppose the traffic on the road had kept him fully occupied. So the writer makes a wild guess that the Pret had not harmed anybody in the house because maybe he was all the time occupied with the traffic, the buses and cars and carts going on the road. Sometimes when a tonga was passing, what is a tonga? It's a horse-drawn cart. So sometimes when a tonga was passing, he would frighten the pony, and as a result, the little pony cart would go speeding off in the wrong direction. So at times when the tonga passed from there, he would frighten, he would scare the little pony, and out of fear, the pony got so scared that it would start running with great speed, and the tonga would go in a wrong direction. Occasionally, he would get into the engine of a car or bus. So, at times, what would it do? What mischief would it do? It would go inside the engine of a car or a bus. And what would be the result of that? Which would have a breakdown soon afterwards. So, it would go inside the engine of the car or the bus, and after some time, what would happen? The car or the bus would break down. That is, it won't go any further. It would, the engine would not work anymore. He liked to knock the hats off the heads of sahibs. Now, what was his favorite mischief? He would remove the hats from the heads of the sahibs. Who are these sahibs? These are the British officials, right? They would then curse and wonder at the breeze that had sprung up so suddenly and died down again just as quickly. So what would they think when the hats flew off their head? They would curse, they would think that it is due to the breeze, and they would curse the breeze, which all of a sudden blew off their hats, and all of a sudden gone also. No breeze, no strong wind, the gust of wind, right? Although the Pret could not himself felt and sometimes heard, he was invisible to the human eye. So, although the Pret could make himself felt and sometimes heard, so although the people could feel or could hear the Pret, but he was invisible to human eye. Nobody could see him. People could feel him, people could hear him, but nobody could see him. He was invisible to human eye. At night, people avoided walking beneath the peepal tree. So at night, people were so scared that they would not walk down through that path. Why? Because they were scared, they were frightened of this peepal tree. It was said that if you yawned beneath the tree, the Pret would jump down your throat and ruin your digestion. So why did people avoid going over there near that peepal tree? Yes, people believed that if they yawn, how do you yawn? With your mouth open? Yes. So if you yawn beneath that tree, the Pret would directly go into your stomach and it would affect your digestive system. So you'll have all sorts of stomach problems, digestion problems, right? So children, we'll stop here for today. So I hope you enjoyed reading this story till we have covered. And children, as I told you, Ruskin Bond is a very lively writer, and his language, his style is so simple that one can relate, one can visualize everything. It seems as if everything is happening in front of the reader's eye, and this is what we are finding in this story. So read the story till we have covered, and we'll again continue with this story in the next session. Thank you.